Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to another outrageous episode of r/Entitled People, where people seem to think the world revolves around them and that they can do whatever they want and get whatever they want. Guys, I hope you're having an awesome day today. And listen, as always, the stories are super entitled, so strap yourselves in because it's a wild ride. I hope you enjoy the stories today and do hit that subscribe button for future tales. Okay, so this happened a few years ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. And to be honest, I still can't understand what my sister was thinking. So a little bit of backstory. My sister and I had to share everything as kids. Not to mention, I was forced to be her and our youngest brother's second mother, but I'll put that in a different post. For some of my childhood, I was happy to share things with my sister. Sweets, snacks, toys, the normal kid things. There was 4 years between us, and I'm the oldest, as you can probably guess. And when I reached my teen years, I wanted my own things and to spend time alone. But nope, she wanted me to do everything with her. I could barely spend 10 minutes in the bathroom before she would start banging on the door. Unfortunately, when I was around 15 years old, my siblings and I were taken into foster care. At that point, I didn't mind my sister wanting to spend all of her time with me. So shortly after my 16th birthday, I wanted to have my own space and things that are mine. She would argue with me over not sharing my stuff, and of course, typical sibling fights and yelling happened almost every day. We sort of grew out of our sibling squabbles over the years, but she kind of developed the world owes me attitude, which drove me crazy. I did my best to hold in my frustrations, but I'm human and sometimes I kinda snapped. So a couple years after my daughter was born, my sister and I weren't really talking much because of her selfish attitude towards me. The reason being was that I started to spend most of my time and income on my daughter. So during one of the times that we were on good terms, she was over for the weekend and everything was okay. Until a conversation led to her telling me how she was going to take my daughter for a week because she wanted to spend time with her because it was her turn. Now I said to her, "Excuse me? Your turn?" I told her that's not gonna happen. She's my daughter, not a doll, not a pet that we get to share. She gets mad and starts yelling. I told her to leave and she argues how she had parental rights and social services will force me to allow her to take my daughter whenever she wants. At this point, I laughed. I told her to get out and don't come back. Honestly, I don't know if she seriously thought that it was her right to have my daughter or what, but she's a little bit crazy. Guys, that's absolutely ridiculous. Like, she literally thought she was entitled to OP's daughter. That does sound a little bit crazy, and I love how she argues that she has parental rights and that social services will allow her to take OP's daughter whenever she wants. Yeah, you go ahead and try that, ma'am. Let's see where that lands you. And I absolutely love this comment right here, guys. Sweet jumping daffodils, what is wrong with her? So a little bit of backstory. My daughter is disabled. She has nonverbal autism and TBI, which is traumatic brain injury, which means that she looks relatively normal, but she's profoundly disabled. I rarely take her out into public alone because she's just so hard to manage, especially now that she's almost 9. Now, not only will she not stay with me, she will actually bolt like a greyhound, she'll scream, she'll rip things open, she'll steal toys from babies, and otherwise be an impossible nuisance. So for this reason, I almost always order what I need for delivery, including groceries. However, life is unpredictable sometimes, and I every so often have to brave a trip to the grocery store. So a few years ago, the god smiled down on me when the local grocery store I frequent started using the Caroline cart. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's a special cart with a large seat for disabled children who are too big for the toddler seat. They normally park it with the scooters and wheelchairs with a big blue handicap marker on it. So the parents don't mistakenly use it for their older, able-bodied kids, but admittedly, that doesn't seem to stop them. Now I do see people using it all the time, like one of their car carts, which is a cart with a toy car attached for the kids to drive while they shop. This particular day a few weeks ago, the snow was so heavy and intense that not only was school canceled, but so was my grocery delivery. That means that I would have to go to the store with my daughter. As usual, I walked in praying that the Caroline cart was available, and thank goodness it was. I strap my daughter in and start to shop. As usual, my first stop was the bakery to get a free cookie. They always hand them out to kids. I noticed right away that there were a lot of kids there that day and assumed that many parents were like me, saddled with their kids during the snow day and unable to get grocery delivery. The bakery was hopping, and there were a number of parents and kids waiting for a new batch of cookies to be ready. One of the mothers, a Karen, seemed particularly distressed, and I can't say I blamed her. Her daughter, around the age of 5, was having a meltdown. She was angry, crying, shouting, and demanding a cookie. Karen tells her, "They aren't ready yet, honey, we just have to wait." Now Karen, noticing the glances of everyone around her, she looked defensive, but forced an apology saying, "I'm sorry, she's very tired and it's past her nap time." Now no one said anything. We were all parents, so we understood. Now, my daughter seemed to not like that noise, and as she often does when she's irritated, she was stimming. That is, flapping her hands or pushing a fist into her ear, over and over again. At this point, I get out her Minnie Mouse phone, and hand it to her, and she calmed down and started to play with it. So looking over, Karen sees us and looks inexplicably relieved. She sees my daughter in the cart, and she looks at me and says, "Oh, thank goodness, that cart wasn't there when we came in. Do you mind if I use it? My daughter is exhausted." I said, oh, I'm sorry, but my daughter actually needs it. She's disabled." So the Karen blinks and looks at my daughter playing quietly with her toy and says, "She doesn't look disabled. What's wrong with her? Can she walk?" Now, I was flabbergasted at how insanely rude that was. I said, yeah, she can walk, but she would run off in a hot second. I can't hang on to her and shop at the same time." So Karen then looks at me and says, "So you're using the disabled cart because your daughter doesn't listen to you? That sounds like a parenting problem to me. Look, she's much older than my little girl and she seems fine. We would really appreciate it if you just gave us the cart." She started coming closer and I protectively pulled the cart closer to me. I said, no, she has autism." Karen then says, "Jesus, everybody nowadays has autism. That's not a real disability." And I was pretty pissed off at this point. I said to her, "Hey, the cart is for disabled kids, just like you said, not tired children. Why don't you use a car cart or put her in a grocery cart?" Karen says, "There aren't any car carts. Besides, I can't see her in that. Just let me use that cart." Now, the shouting upset my daughter again, and she started doing the thing where she punches her ear over and over again. It was the first time she looked abnormal, and the woman looked visibly distraught and was sort of grossed out. And by now, other people were paying more attention to this, and this wonderful older woman said, "Ma'am, autism can be a very severe disability. Look, you're upsetting this little girl, and the cart is for disabled children. You need to stop now." I mouthed a silent thank you to the older woman, wishing I could go hug her, because that was some Wonder Woman level intervention to speak up that way. But my daughter was so upset that I decided to skip the cookie and just leave. No one stopped me, but the same older woman who had stood up for me saw us waiting in line and insisted that I go in front of her so I could get home. I was so grateful. Now, my little girl was at that point possessively clutching the string to a giant teddy bear helium balloon. I was intending to buy it, but I was debating on how to get it away from her so it could be scanned without making her flip out, because you just can't take stuff from her without her throwing a fit. The kind old lady saw my struggle and reached out to tear the scan code sticker off the string and put it with her purchases. The woman then says, "Don't you worry, my dear, I've got it." She then winked at me and my little girl and said, "I think you could use a little extra kindness today from what I just saw." I told her, "Oh no, I can't have you pay for that. It's an $8 balloon, really." The woman then says, "I insist." I thanked her profusely and left with tears in my eyes. I was touched. I love it when people try to make my day a little bit easier, since some days it's just not. So a little bit of background. I'm a half-black woman who grew up in the ghetto and worked damn hard through high school to earn a scholarship and a full ride through college. I now work a very decent job and make a reasonable amount of money, which I'm not afraid to show off, though I do maintain my ghetto heritage. Naturally, racism is a very touchy subject for me, so I'm here minding my own business in a local coffee place, answering some emails on my new Samsung Note 10. It's my day off, so I'm not dressed particularly well. I'm wearing a hoodie, sweatpants, you know the deal. So at this point, a woman, Karen, walks in with her little kid. Now Karen is snooty looking, like she was trying really hard to look wealthy, but nothing she had on was actually valuable. Obviously fake jewelry. Now her son looked to be about 12 or 13 years old. He was large, and I was positive he had some kind of autism or Asperger's due to his mannerisms and, well, screeching. So I then noticed that Karen and her son are staring at me. Now, that's not a big deal, especially since this is an upper class area and I'm, well, me, with my demeanor. Eventually, Karen and her son walk over to me and she says, "Hey, where did you get that?" I told her, I bought it. She asked, "How? How do you think? People like you can't afford phones like that. You must have stolen it." Now, at this point, I'm sort of in shock, and I'm speechless. And she follows up with, "I should report you to the police, but I'm willing to let this go if you just hand the phone to me right now." I then asked her, "Why would I do that?" She says, "Because you stole it, and you don't deserve it." So I tell her that she's not getting my phone, and at this point, the manager or supervisor or staff member, I'm not sure, walks over after noticing the situation and tries to calm everyone down. The manager says, "Ma'am, I need you to keep it down. This is a coffee shop." Karen then says, "This woman called me a bitch after stealing my son's phone." The manager says, "Wait, what?" Karen then goes on and says, "I want a full refund and I want my phone back and some compensation." The manager looks to me and says, "Ma'am, you need to give her the phone back or I'm calling the police." Now I tried telling him that it's my phone and Karen says, "That's my son's phone. You stole it." The manager then says, "Ma'am, that's clearly not your phone. I will call the police if you don't give the phone back to her." Now, having dealt with racism all my life, I began to go off on them, so naturally the police were called. The police immediately apprehended me, and only me, and confiscated my phone. They also took Karen's, her kids, and the manager's statements before taking mine last. So, all three of them told the cops an exaggerated version of what happened. And at this point, you'd have thought that I was some homeless black person who just mugged a 13-year-old, if you believe the story they told. I gave them my statement and told them that I would refuse to cooperate any further until they checked the security footage. Now, the coffee shop refused to let them check, since as far as they were concerned, it was clear that I was a thief and had been apprehended, so what's the point? Eventually, the security footage was checked. The police awkwardly apologized and even went out of their way to say, "We weren't working on racial stereotypes, we were just responding to the scene that was reported." None of the coffee shop staff actually said anything to me once I was apprehended, so I guess I'm not going back there now. Karen seemed completely unfazed by the security footage, continuing to claim that I must have stolen it from someone else because my type can't afford these phones. So that was another day ruined by an entitled parent and racial profiling. I wish I could say I was surprised by the absolute gall of that woman, but to be honest, I've experienced so many of these situations that nothing even surprises me anymore. My friends, what an absolutely crazy situation to be in. I can't believe a wild accusation like that almost got OP freaking arrested. Like, there are so many ways to prove that a phone is in fact yours. Like, hand the phone to the manager and ask Karen what the background is. If the phone has a passcode lock, get the Karen to try to unlock it. Like, get her to call the phone if it's hers. That would have been the simplest way, but clearly, they just let it go over their heads and escalated the situation and got police involved. So, I recently had an emergency appendectomy, and the recovery has been slow. I had to take time off from my own athletics, but worse, from coaching the kids in a sports program that I'm involved with. The experience made me take a step back and realize that I really built my whole identity around being active and healthy. So the hit my physical abilities took as a result of being sick, plus the healing process has really made me feel lost. Now, I've been working to regain the joy I used to experience from exercise, without going, "Oh, you used to be so much faster with that," or "Your technique used to be so much stronger," or "You don't fit in anymore," or whatever else, and just enjoy myself regardless of the level I'm at. But ironically, the anxiety of not being able to do what I used to do has made regaining those abilities difficult. It made me self-conscious about exercising in public spaces, but I was starting to finally get over it as my friends convinced me the source of the concerns were all in my head. There was no way to get back to it other than training, so despite the anxiety, I had started running again as soon as the doctors had approved it. I went to the local track and did a few slow laps every morning, building up speed every few days, and I've only been authorized to add some sprints and body weight training to the mix. Occasionally, there were people at the track, but I didn't really notice because I run with headphones on and try to zone out in these lighter sessions. But little did I know, my friends were wrong. It was not all in my head. I was being watched, and more than that, I was being judged. On Friday, I was setting up for practice at the kids program, and the head coach asked me to go to his office because a parent had complained a parent that I didn't know too well. So Karen was there, and she had specific complaints about me. Now the meeting almost didn't happen because of Karen's initial refusal to put on a mask. But eventually her desire to tell on me for whatever she thought she had on me overrode her freedoms to infect everyone. I was a bit nervous, as anyone is, being called to meet with their boss over a complaint. But I figured it was a classic case of my kid should start more. Or I know my kid tried out as a midfielder, but I want him or her to switch to defense. You know, that kind of thing. But instead, I sat down in the office and Karen is playing my boss a video of me running around on the track that she filmed from afar. Now, I was horrified, both because no one is ever totally used to seeing themselves on video, and because I was embarrassed about how slow I was. But most importantly, because why was a virtual stranger, whom I've never met, filming me while I ran on my own time at a private facility? She then went on to explain that her 8-year-old son, one of the players on my squad, was lapping me in the video and insisting the coaches need to hold themselves to a higher athletic standard. She then asked how the heck her son could be a pro if this is the kind of coach that's training him. Again, her son is only 8 years old. Apparently her son would sometimes be running on the track while her older child was practicing on the nearby field. Now I never noticed, the kid is still relatively new and I don't pay much attention to the other people on the track. My boss patiently but firmly explained to Karen that my physical abilities are not the parents' concern, and that all personnel are closely managed by the head coaches who understand each unique situation and what's appropriate, and that her son would not be impacted. Karen then went on to say that me being out of shape was probably connected to why I had been taking so much time off lately. My boss again reiterated that the head coaches hadn't changed or taken any time off and that I was still one of the most skilled in the area that I instruct, so this was not her concern. She then asked if there was someone else she could speak to, but he explained that he was the owner and the founder of the program, so no, there was not. I knew my boss was intentionally avoiding saying what happened to me or even alluding to a health issue to protect my privacy, but I figured maybe being transparent with her would show her how ridiculous she's being. But when I explained, she just turned to the boss and said, well, maybe you should replace her until she's healed, and bring on a healthy coach in the meantime, because my son needs someone out there who can keep up with him. She can barely run. My boss respected what I was trying to do, but made it clear that we were not going to further with that strategy, to avoid setting a precedent of sharing coaches' personal circumstances. Telling her why people take time off or what their health status may be is not her concern because the program manages that and makes appropriate decisions. She kept kicking up a fuss, but the coach finally told her that he had to get back out on the field, back to her son and everyone else's kids. She started physically leaving but continued fussing how she was not satisfied and would not be recommending us to other parents. The coach wasn't preparing to leave. Instead, he stopped her in her tracks to tell her that if she was found to be surveilling or otherwise harassing staff members again, that she would be permabanned from the program. No games, no practices, no team social events, no presence in our buildings. So that was pretty satisfying. Her son is a good, average kid, and I'm glad the consequences were focused on booting her out rather than limiting his opportunities to have fun playing. So we went out there and had a great, happy, safe practice. This was still a pretty upsetting event for me personally though, and I'll never unsee that discouraging video of me running. But it was ultimately reassuring to know that the other staff have my back. Leaving Karen in the dust is just another step on my road to recovery. Guys, I can't believe that woman took a video of OP and went straight to her boss about it. Like, as a coach, you're there to teach the kids, not compete with the kids. That logic is ridiculous, and so is that mom's behavior. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, we survived another one as always. If you enjoyed the stories today, do hit that thumbs up. And if you missed yesterday's episode, a shady guy refuses to pay OP for a month's work and then laughs at him. And his life pretty much crumbles due to OP's revenge. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.